He's my eighth brother. My mom and dad had 7, but then another one snuck in from somewhere. And it would be Pastor Donnie McClurkin. How are you?
A 3-time Grammy-winning gospel icon who sold more than 13 million albums, performed for presidents from both political parties, and grew a megachurch from just 200 members to over 3,000, saw his legacy begin to unravel after a single email unexpectedly came to light. In it, he described himself as a desperate, dirty old man. The same preacher who spent decades declaring that God had delivered him from homosexuality was concealing a secret so damaging that, once revealed, it shook the gospel music world and threatened everything he had spent his life building. The lawsuit that shattered the pulpit. On January 2, 2026, a civil lawsuit was filed in New York State Supreme Court in Manhattan, and the name on the filing sent shockwaves through every corner of the Christian community. The defendant was Donnie McClurkin, the founding pastor of Perfecting Faith Church in Freeport, New York, and one of the most celebrated voices in the history of gospel music. The man suing him was Giuseppe Corletto, a former personal assistant and church member who alleged that McClurkin had groomed him and engaged him in non-consensual acts over a period spanning nearly a decade. According to the lawsuit, which was covered extensively by NBC News, Billboard, USA Today, and People magazine, Corletto first met McClurkin in August of 2003, when he attended an event at Perfecting Faith Church on Long Island. He was 21 years old at the time, and he had come to the church after reading McClurkin's autobiography, Eternal Victim, Eternal Victor, a book in which the pastor described being mistreated as a child and claimed that God helped him overcome what he called the curse of homosexuality. Corletto told NBC News that the book resonated with him deeply because he had a similar story. He too had been mistreated by a male relative as a child, and he too was struggling to reconcile his same-sex attraction with his Christian faith. Corletto says he initially sought spiritual guidance, but claims he experienced something very different. According to the lawsuit, McClurkin conducted what were described as spiritual healing sessions intended to help him overcome same-sex attraction. The lawsuit alleges these so-called Pray the Gay Away sessions involved inappropriate touching and molestation. By 2004, Corletto had become McClurkin's personal assistant, traveling with him nationwide. The lawsuit further claims the grooming intensified over time, leading to the first alleged non-consensual physical encounter in a California hotel room in 2007. The complaint goes on to describe alleged misconduct in Atlantic City, Manhattan, and at McClurkin's home on Long Island between 2007 and 2009. Corletto reportedly tried to quit on multiple occasions, but the lawsuit states that McClurkin told him his deliverance and purpose were spiritually tied to the pastor, effectively using Scripture as a tool of control. One of the most disturbing details in the entire filing is the allegation that McClurkin would secretly grope Corletto before walking up to the pulpit to preach, causing the young man to cry during services. McClurkin would then allegedly use those tears to encourage other congregants to openly express emotion, turning his accuser's pain into a prop for his sermons. Corletto told NBC News that he confided in church staff members about the misconduct, but no action was ever taken. He quit working for McClurkin in 2008, but the lawsuit claims the pastor continued pursuing him, with additional alleged misconducts in Florida in 2012 and in Boston and Niagara Falls in 2013. The last alleged incident occurred in 2015, after which Corletto finally left the church for good. The man standing behind the pulpit preaching deliverance from sin was allegedly committing the very acts he publicly condemned, and the church he built with his testimony became, according to these allegations, the very place where the misconduct was carried out. The email no one was supposed to find. According to the court filing, after an alleged incident of misconduct at a Niagara Falls hotel in 2013, Donnie McClurkin sent Giuseppe Corletto an email the following day. That email, which is included as an image within the lawsuit itself, contains language so direct and so self-incriminating that it has become the single most talked about element of the entire case. In the email, McClurkin allegedly wrote that he was the actual epitome of a desperate, dirty old man, pawning and groping a young man who was just looking for a friendship and close platonic relationship with someone he looked to for help, guidance, and spirituality. He went on to write that he felt so foul, so stupid, and that he was horribly wrong trying to force Corletto into something that he was consistently saying no to. The email also reportedly stated that Corletto did not have that desire for him, and that he should not have had it for Corletto. He concluded by writing that he forced himself on Corletto and that he was too old to be like this. If this email is authentic, and Corletto's attorney says it is, then the man who sold millions of albums telling people God had cured his homosexuality privately wrote an email admitting to forcing himself on a younger man and calling himself a dirty old man in the process. That is not a crack in the armor. That is a complete collapse of the entire narrative Donnie McClurkin built his career and ministry around. Corletto told NBC News that he did not discover this email until 2025. He said when he finally found it, he felt vindicated, that it proved he had not made it up, that he was not crazy, and that McClurkin was admitting to his guilt in his own words. That discovery is what ultimately led Corletto to file the lawsuit. Following the Niagara Falls incident, Corletto says he became deeply depressed and suicidal, attempted to take his own life, and eventually moved away, married, and built a new life. His attorney, Thomas Jufra, told reporters the lawsuit seeks financial compensation, closure, and some measure of justice. McClurkin's attorney, Gregory S. Lisi, called the allegations categorically false and stated that at no time did Pastor McClurkin engage in any form of misconduct, mistreatment, or non-consensual acts. Lisi also stated that the claims grossly mischaracterize their interactions, which occurred over a decade and some over 2 decades ago. Days after the lawsuit became public, McClurkin posted a personal statement on his Facebook and Instagram pages calling the accusations contrived and untrue, insisting he would be vindicated and asking his more than 2 million followers to pray for both him and his accuser. But an email in a court file does not disappear with a Facebook post, and Donnie McClurkin's own words, if verified, may end up being the most powerful testimony in this case, delivered not from a witness stand, but from his own keyboard. To understand how someone like Giuseppe Corletto could walk into Perfecting Faith Church and hand his entire trust over to Donnie McClurkin, you need to understand how powerful that trust was and where it came from. The book that built an empire and baited a trap. It came from a book. And that book was not fiction. It was built on real, documented, verifiable suffering that made McClurkin one of the most sympathetic figures in gospel music history. Donnie McClurkin was born on November 9, 1959, in Copiague, New York, and his childhood was marked by almost unimaginable tragedy. When he was 8 years old, he ran across the street to get a ball, and his 2-year-old brother followed behind him without anyone noticing. A speeding car struck and killed the toddler. McClurkin carried the guilt of that moment for the rest of his life, believing he was responsible because he had been the one supposed to watch the child. 2 days after the funeral, while his grieving parents sent him to stay with extended family, his great-uncle mistreated him for the first time. 5 years later, that uncle's son mistreated him again. 2 of his sisters were also victims of misconduct within the same family. In 2001, McClurkin published Eternal Victim, Eternal Victor, detailing all of this publicly. He wrote that the misconduct had planted a seed that would be his lot to struggle with for many years to come. He described his subsequent struggles with homosexuality and claimed that, through scripture and faith, he had been delivered from what he called the curse of homosexuality. The book became a cornerstone of his ministry and the foundation of his public identity. It sold widely across the Christian market and gave McClurkin a unique position in American gospel culture. He was not just a singer, he was a survivor. He was proof that God could change anything. The autobiography that turned Donnie McClurkin into a household name also created a pipeline of desperate, trusting young people walking straight through the doors of his church. And according to the lawsuit, at least one of them walked straight into years of alleged misconduct. The political stage and the culture war. While all of this was allegedly happening behind closed doors, Donnie McClurkin was becoming one of the most politically controversial gospel figures in America. His public stance that homosexuality was a choice and a curse that could be overcome through faith put him directly at the center of some of the most heated cultural battles of the last 2 decades. In 2004, he performed at the Republican National Convention, positioning himself firmly within conservative politics at a time when opposing same-sex marriage was a core campaign strategy. 3 years later, then-Senator Barack Obama's campaign organized a gospel concert tour through South Carolina called Embrace the Change, and McClurkin was booked as the headliner. The backlash was immediate. The National Black Justice Coalition wrote directly to Obama, calling McClurkin the most volatile and openly homophobic artist in gospel music. Obama issued a public statement saying he strongly disagreed with Reverend McClurkin's views, but the campaign refused to drop him. Instead, they added an openly gay pastor to the same program as a compromise, while gay rights groups staged a vigil outside the concert. In 2009, at the Church of God in Christ Holy Convocation Youth Conference in Memphis, McClurkin used the words perversion and vampirism to describe feminine young men and what he called evil butch young ladies. Bishop Yvette Flunder, an openly lesbian bishop with COGIC roots, published an open letter condemning the language. In 2013, he was removed from a Washington, D.C. concert celebrating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington after activists objected, though the city still paid him $10,000 because of contractual obligations. Every one of these public moments reinforced the same message, that Donnie McClurkin had conquered homosexuality through God and was willing to face any backlash to preach it. The irony that now hovers over all of it is suffocating, because, according to the lawsuit, during the very years he was preaching deliverance on national stages, he was allegedly engaged in the exact behavior he was publicly condemning. The scale of what Donnie McClurkin achieved is important to understand because it explains why the fallout from these allegations has been so devastating. This was not a small-time preacher running a storefront church. This was one of the most decorated gospel artists in history. The rise and fall of the gospel king. His path to stardom began under Bishop Marvin Winans at Perfecting Church in Detroit, where he served as an associate minister for over a decade starting in 1989. In 1996, his self-titled debut album was championed by Oprah Winfrey, who named it one of her favorite things, and that endorsement catapulted him into mainstream consciousness. His songs Stand and We Fall Down became anthems across denominations, and his Live in London album went platinum and earned him his first Grammy. He won 3 Grammys in total, along with 10 Stellar Awards, 2 BET Awards, and 1 NAACP Image Award. Variety named him the reigning king of urban gospel. When we nuns ordained him in 2001, McClurkin founded Perfecting Faith Church in Freeport, New York, which grew from 200 members to over 3,000 and expanded into locations in Hempstead, Lakeland, Chester, and Harlem. He launched a nationally syndicated radio show, starred in his own television series, and spent 5 seasons as a judge on BET's Sunday Best. His album sales surpassed 13 million copies worldwide. In 2018, he survived a serious car accident after falling asleep at the wheel and publicly credited God for sparing his life. Even in crisis, the narrative always circled back to divine protection and deliverance. 13 million albums and 3 Grammy Awards do not matter much when the testimony that sold all of them is being challenged in a Manhattan courtroom. The confession that came too late. Years before the lawsuit was filed, Donnie McClurkin started saying things publicly that, in hindsight, take on an entirely different meaning. And the most revealing of those moments came on Easter Sunday, 2021, when TV One aired an episode of Uncensored featuring the gospel legend in his most vulnerable interview to date. In 2016, McClurkin appeared at the Stellar Awards with fellow gospel artist Nicole C. Mullen, marking the first time he had ever publicly dated anyone. During an appearance on TBN, host Matt Crouch announced to roughly 3 million viewers that McClurkin was getting married. But the relationship eventually ended when Mullen married a different man in 2020. On that Easter Sunday episode of Uncensored, McClurkin admitted that he did not know how to have the relationship with Mullen, that he did not know what a woman wanted, and that he had messed up more than he had done good. Then came the statement that stopped the internet cold. He said his past relationships were a sprinkling of everything, men and women. He compared his same-sex desires to diabetes, saying he did not eat sugar, but it did not mean he did not want sugar. And he concluded by saying he would probably be alone for the rest of his life as far as a mate was concerned. Social media did not hold back. One widely shared tweet read that it was heartbreaking, and that nobody could tell them it was God's will for Donnie McClurkin to suffer that level of loneliness because of who he was attracted to. In a 2019 interview with Religion News Service, McClurkin had already quietly distanced himself from the ex-gay label entirely, simply saying, "I consider myself to be Donnie." What makes these admissions so painful to revisit now is the timeline. While McClurkin was telling the world he might die alone because of unresolved desires he could not act on, the lawsuit alleges he had been acting on those desires for years in private, and that the person on the receiving end did not consent. The public confession of loneliness and struggle looks very different when placed alongside allegations of misconduct and a self-described admission of being a dirty old man in an email that is now sitting in a court file. The man who told millions of viewers he would probably die alone was not actually alone at all, according to these allegations, and the person who was with him says he never wanted to be there. What happens when the pulpit goes silent? As of mid-2026, the lawsuit against Donnie McClurkin remains active in Manhattan. He continues to serve as senior pastor of Perfecting Faith Church, and his weekly podcast continues to air on major platforms. He performed at the 40th Annual Stellar Gospel Music Awards in Nashville in August of 2025, just months before the lawsuit became public. On the surface, his ministry has not slowed down, but beneath the surface, the damage is spreading in ways that will be difficult to contain. The lawsuit has reignited discussions across gospel music, the Black church, and LGBTQ advocacy communities about the real dangers of conversion therapy, the unchecked power dynamics within pastoral authority, and the ways religious institutions have historically failed to hold their leaders accountable. Corletto's allegation that he reported the misconduct to church staff members and that no action was taken raises serious questions about institutional complicity at Perfecting Faith Church. Donnie McClurkin is not the first prominent pastor to face allegations of sexual misconduct, and the gospel industry has a long, complicated history of protecting powerful men while silencing the people they harm. What makes this case different is the alleged email. If that email is authenticated and admitted as evidence, it becomes extremely difficult to argue that the interactions between McClurkin and Corletto were consensual, because the language describes forcing someone into something they were consistently refusing. The central contradiction of his entire career now sits exposed for the world to examine, and whether the court ultimately finds in favor of Corletto or McClurkin, the questions this case has raised will not be resolved by a legal verdict alone. Because the real question at the heart of this is not just about one pastor and one accuser. It is about how many people walked into churches across this country carrying the same pain Giuseppe Corletto carried, trusted the same kind of authority, and never had the courage to say what happened behind closed doors. Until the church takes that question seriously, cases like this will keep surfacing, and the people in those pews will keep paying the price for institutional silence. This story is still unfolding, and the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep it gets buried. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you believe should happen next.